The Path of the Two Migrations and the Gate of the Two Happinesses, by Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyyah, died 1350 CE. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. The first volume. All praise is due to God, who has set all beings as a standing proof of his lordship and his oneness, who has veiled minds and eyes from finding any how that could define him as a method, who has made salvation and deliverance the certain gain of whoever bears witness to his oneness with a testimony that admits no crookedness, who has made for everyone who takes refuge in him and flees to him a way out of every strait, who causes relief to follow the constriction of harsh trials and the suffocation of relentless afflictions for whoever places his trust in him, and who has made the hearts of his friends hang with longing upon the stations of servanthood to him, patience, reliance, turning back to him, surrendering all affairs to him, love, fear, and hope. Limitless, then, is he who has poured out blessing upon his creation, who has bound mercy upon himself, and who has guaranteed within the book he has ordained that his mercy prevails over his wrath. He has lavished his favours upon his servants singly and in pairs, and he has subjected for them land and sea, sun and moon, night and day, springs and rivers, light and darkness. He has sent to them his messengers and sent down upon them his books, calling them to dwell near him in the abode of peace. And whomsoever God wills to guide, he opens his breast to surrender, and whomsoever he wills to let go astray, he makes his breast tight and constricted. 25. Limitless, then, is he who has sent down the book upon his servant, and has not placed in it any crookedness. 18. He raises by it whoever holds fast to it, so that he deems lawful what it has made lawful, forbids what it has forbidden, acts by its definitive ordinances, and believes in its allegorical passages, ascending thereby the stairways of felicity, degree upon degree. And he casts down whoever turns away from it and does not raise his head by it, but throws it behind his back and seeks guidance elsewhere, causing him to plunge into the depths of the blazing fire. For it is the wise remembrance, the straight path, the tremendous tiding, the firm cord of God, stretched out, strong and enduring, between him and his creation, his covenant by which whoever holds fast attains triumph and salvation. And I bear witness that there is no deity save God alone. No partner has he, no namesake, no equal, no consort, no child, no likeness. No one can ever encompass his praise. Rather, he is as he has praised himself, and beyond all that his creation can utter in his praise. A testimony of one whose heart has become radiant with faith in God and in his names and attributes, and who has not turned away from that into the doubtful resemblances of those who deny and strip God of his attributes. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger, his chosen one among his creation, the trustee of his revelation, and his envoy between him and his servants. God sent him as a mercy to all worlds. 21:107. An example for those who strive, a clear road for those who journey, and a proof against all humankind. He sent him at a time when messengers had ceased, and by him he guided to the most upright ways, and made the path most clear. He made it a duty upon his servants to obey him, love him, aid him, revere him, and fulfill his rights. And he barred every road to his garden, opening it for no one except through his way. He opened his breast for him, 94, raised high his renown, 94, lifted from him his burden, 94, and made abasement and littleness the portion of whoever defies his command. Thus by him he guided out of error, and by him he taught after ignorance. By him he multiplied after scarcity, honored after humiliation, enriched after need, gave sight after blindness, and gave right direction after waywardness. By his message he opened eyes that were blind, ears that were deaf, and hearts that were sealed. He delivered the message, fulfilled the trust, counselled the community, strove for God with the striving due to him, and worshipped God until certainty came to him. He left no good without pointing his community to it, and no evil without warning them against it, and he forbade the treading of paths that lead to it. He opened hearts by faith and the Qur'an, and he strove against God's enemies with hand, heart, and tongue. He called to God upon clear insight, and he walked among the community through justice, through excellence, and through his magnificent character, with the finest way of life, until the earth shone by his message after its darkness, and hearts were brought together by him after their scattering. His call travelled through all regions as the sun travels, and his upright religion reached as far as night and day can reach. Hearts responded to the call of truth in willing acceptance and humble submission, and after fear and disbelief they were filled with safety and faith. So may God reward him on behalf of his community with the best of reward, and may he bestow blessings upon him, blessings that fill the horizons of earth and heaven, and grant him abiding peace beyond measure. Now then, God, limitless is he, has planted the tree of his love, his knowledge, and his oneness in the hearts of those whom he chose from among his creatures. He singled them out with his grace and gave them favour over all the rest of his creation. Thus it is, like a good tree, its root firm, its branches in the sky, yielding its fruit at all times by its sustainers' leave. 14:24-25. And so too is the tree of faith. Its root is firmly set in the heart, while its branches of wholesome word and righteous deed rise toward heaven. This tree never ceases to bring forth its fruit at every moment by its sustainers' leave, from good speech and sound action, things that delight the eye of the one who possesses the root, and the eyes of those who guard him, and the eyes of his family and companions, and of all who draw near to him. For whoever's eye finds rest in God, every eye finds rest by him. Every lonely soul finds intimacy through him. Every foul thing becomes sweet through him. Every saddened heart finds joy through him. Every frightened soul finds safety through him. Every absent one is witnessed through him, and his sight reminds one of God, so that when he is seen, God is remembered. His heart has found tranquility in God. His soul has come to rest with God. His love has been purified for God. His fear has been confined to God, and all his hope has become God. Thus, if he hears through God. If he sees through God. If he strikes through God. And if he walks through God. Through him he hears, through him he sees, through him he strikes, and through him he walks. And so, if he loves for God. If he hates for God. If he gives for God. And if he withholds for God. He has taken God alone as the one he worships, the one he hopes for, the one he fears, the ultimate aim of his intent, and the farthest end of his seeking. And he has taken his messenger alone as his guide, his leader, his commander, and the one who drives him on. Thus he makes God one, by worship, love, fear, and hope, and he singles out his messenger for following, taking him as an exemplar, shaping himself by his character and learning the courtesy of his ways. Therefore, at every moment he has two migrations, a migration to God through seeking and love, servanthood and trust, turning back and surrender, consigning all affairs to him, fear and hope, turning toward him, and truthful refuge and neediness in every breath. and a migration to his messenger, in his movements and stillness, outward and inward, so that they accord with his law, which is the detailed unfolding of what God loves and what pleases him. God accepts from no one any religion other than this, and every deed outside it is merely the soul's livelihood and its share, not provision for the returning home. It has been said by the Sheikh of the Path and the Imam of this community, Al-Junayd ibn Muhammad, may God sanctify his spirit, all roads are barred except the road of one who follows the traces of the Prophet. Upon him be peace and blessings. For God, mighty and exalted, says, "By my might and my majesty, if they were to come to me by every road and seek opening at every gate, I would not open for them until they enter behind you." And one of the realized ones has said, "Every deed without following is the soul's livelihood." And since felicity revolves, negatively and positively, around what he brought, it is only fitting for one who is sincere toward himself to make the moments of his life a devoted endowment to knowing it and to confine his will to loving it. This is the highest aspiration toward which the forerunners rolled up their sleeves. In it the competitors competed. Therefore, we have set down in this book the foundational principles for walking the path of the Muhammadan migration, and we have named it the path of the two migrations and the gate of the two felicities. We began it with the chapter on poverty and servanthood, since it is the greatest gate of felicity and its most upright path, and there is no way to enter it except through that gate. And we concluded it by mentioning the ranks of those morally responsible among jinn and humankind in the hereafter, and their degrees in the abode of felicity and the abode of wretchedness. Thus the book came forth strange in its meaning, wondrous in its inner point. For every people there is in it a share, and for every seeker a draught from it. Whatever is in it of truth and rightness is from God. He is the one who bestows it, for success is in his hand alone. And whatever is in it of error and stumbling is from me and from Satan, and God and his messenger are innocent of it. So you who look into it, this is the meagre merchandise of its author brought to you, and this is his understanding and his mind laid out before you. Its gain is yours, and its loss is upon its author. If you withhold from it praise and gratitude, you need not withhold from it pardon and excuse, and if you insist on blame, its door is open. It has been said, God has claimed all praise for himself, and all thanks, and the burden falls upon the learned man. And God is the one asked to make it purely for his sake, and to cause it to benefit its author, its reader, and its scribe in this world and in the hereafter. Truly, he is the hearer of supplication, the best to be hoped for, and he is sufficient for us, and the best to entrust with all affairs. 173. A section, God Most High, says, O mankind, you are the ones who are poor in relation to God. Whereas God, he alone, is self-sufficient, the one to whom all praise is due. 35:15. In this verse he, glory be unto him, makes clear that the servant's poverty in relation to him is an intrinsic reality belonging to them, never leaving them, just as his being rich and worthy of all praise is an intrinsic reality belonging to him. His richness and his praiseworthiness are established by his very essence, not by something that made them necessary for him. And the need of all besides him for him is established by their very essence, not by something that made it necessary for them. Hence, this poverty is not explained by coming to be, nor by possibility. Rather, it is the poor one's very being. The servant's need of his Lord is by his own essence, not because of a cause that produced that need, just as the Lord's richness mighty and exalted is he, is by his essence, not because of something that produced his richness. As Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, "Poverty is for me an essential attribute, forever inseparable, just as richness is forever an essential attribute for him." Creation, then, is poor, needing its Lord by essence, not by a cause. And whatever is mentioned or conceived of as causes of poverty and need are only signs and evidences of poverty and need, not their true causes. For what belongs to essence is not caused. The poor one, by his own essence, is in need of the rich one by his essence. So whatever is mentioned of possibility, coming to be, and neediness are evidences of poverty, not its causes. For this reason, what is correct concerning the question of the cause of the world's need for the Lord Most High is not either of the two positions cited by philosophers and theologians. The philosophers said the cause of need is possibility, and the theologians said the cause of need is coming to be. The truth is that possibility and coming to be are inseparable, and each of them is an evidence of need and dependence. The world's poverty in relation to God, mighty and exalted is He, is an intrinsic matter that is not caused. It is, by its very essence, poor in relation to its Lord, who is by his essence rich. And then one adduces its possibility, its coming to be, and other proofs as evidences of this poverty. What is intended is that He, glory be unto Him, has informed us of the reality of the servants and of their very selves, that they are poor in relation to Him, mighty and exalted is He, just as He has informed us of His own sanctified essence and reality, that He is rich, worthy of all praise. Thus absolute poverty, under every aspect, is established for their very selves and their realities, insofar as they are what they are. And absolute richness, under every aspect, is established for His essence, Most High, and His reality, insofar as it is what it is. It is therefore impossible that the servant be anything other than poor, and impossible that the Lord Most High be anything other than rich, just as it is impossible that the servant be anything other than a servant, and that the Lord be anything other than Lord. Once this is understood, poverty is of two kinds. One is the poverty of constraint, a universal poverty from which neither the upright nor the corrupt can ever depart. This poverty entails neither praise nor blame, neither reward nor punishment. It is simply like the fact that the created being is created and fashioned. The second is a poverty freely chosen, the fruit of two noble knowledges, one the servant's knowledge of his Lord, the other his knowledge of himself. Whenever these two knowledges are truly attained, they give rise to a poverty that is itself his very richness and the banner of his flourishing and happiness. People differ in this poverty according to their differing measure in these two knowledges. Whoever knows his Lord as absolute richness knows himself as absolute poverty. Whoever knows his Lord as perfect power knows himself as complete incapacity. Whoever knows his Lord as perfect might knows himself as utter lowliness. And whoever knows his Lord as perfect knowledge and wisdom knows himself as ignorance. For God Most High brings the servant forth from his mother's womb, knowing nothing, able to do nothing, owning nothing, unable to give or withhold, to harm or benefit, unable to do anything at all. In that state, his poverty, his need for whatever completes him, is something witnessed and felt by everyone. And it is known that this belongs to him as one of the entailments of his very essence, and what belongs to essence endures as long as essence endures. He has not moved from that rank to the rank of lordship and richness. Rather, he has never ceased to be a servant, poor by his very essence in relation to his maker and originator. Then, when God has poured his blessings upon him and caused his mercy to overflow for him and brought to him the means for the completion of his existence, outwardly and inwardly, and clothed him in the garments of his grace, and gave him hearing, sight, and heart, and taught him, enabled him, set him in motion, directed him, and empowered him to make use of those of his own kind, and subjected to him horses and camels, and gave him mastery over the creatures of the water, and made him capture birds from the air, and caused him to subdue fierce beasts, and enabled him to dig rivers, plant trees, cleave the earth, raise buildings, devise all means for his interests, and guard himself from what harms him. Then the poor wretch imagines that he has a share of sovereignty. He lays claim to a dominion alongside God. He sees himself with other than that first eye. He forgets the state of nothingness, poverty, and need in which he once was, until it is as though he was never that poor, needy, constrained one, but as though that were some other person altogether. Thus Imam Ahmad relates in his Musnad, from the hadith of Busr ibn Juhash al-Qurash, that God's messenger, God's blessings and peace be upon him, once spat into his palm, then placed his finger upon it, and said, God, mighty and exalted is he, says, Child of Adam, how can you defeat me when I created you from something like this? Then, when I shaped you and fashioned you in due proportion, you walked about between two garments, and the earth heard from you the heavy thud of your steps. You gathered and withheld, until, when the soul reached the collarbones, you said, I will give in charity. But how can it be the time for charity now? From here one is forsaken, and from here one is granted success. For the forsaken one is veiled from his own reality and made to forget himself. He forgets his poverty, his need, and his utter dependence upon his Lord. So he becomes insolent, rebellious, and self-satisfied, and wretchedness becomes his due. God Most High says, No, indeed, man becomes rebellious when he deems himself self-sufficient. 96. And he says, Now, as for him who gives and is conscious of God, and affirms the best, we shall ease him to the path of ease. But as for him who is miserly and deems himself self-sufficient and denies the best, we shall ease him to the path of hardship. 92:10. Therefore, the most complete among creation are those most complete in servanthood, and greatest in witnessing their poverty, need, and utter dependence upon their Lord, and in never seeing themselves as independent of him for the blink of an eye. For this reason, among his supplications, God's blessings and peace be upon him, was, Set right for me all my affairs, and do not leave me to myself for the blink of an eye, nor to any of your creation. And he used to supplicate, O turner of hearts, make my heart firm upon your religion. For he, God's blessings and peace be upon him, knew that his heart is in the hand of the most gracious, mighty and exalted is he, that he himself has no power over it at all, and that God, mighty and exalted is he, turns it as he wills. And how could it be otherwise when he recited his saying, Mighty and exalted is he? Had we not made you firm, you might indeed have leaned towards them a little. 17-74. Thus his need, God's blessings and peace be upon him, of his Lord, and his longing and indigence in relation to him were in accordance with his knowledge of him, and in accordance with his nearness to him, and his rank with him. This is something that becomes manifest for those after him only in the measure of what spills from the surface of the vessel. For this reason he was the nearest of creation to God as a means, the greatest of them in standing with him, and the loftiest of them in rank with him, because he perfected the station of servanthood and poverty in relation to his Lord. Mighty and exalted is he. And he used to say to them, O people, I do not love that you raise me above my station, I am only a servant. And he used to say, "Do not exaggerate in praising me as the Christians exaggerated in praising the Messiah, son of Mary. I am only a servant, so say, God's servant and his messenger. And God, mighty and exalted is he, has mentioned him with the mark of servanthood in his noblest stations, the station of the night journey, the station of calling, and the station of challenge. Thus he said, limitless in his glory is he who carried his servant by night." 17. And he said, and when God's servant rose to call upon him, 72:19, and he said, and if you are in doubt about what we have sent down upon our servant, 23. And in the hadith of intercession, the Messiah will say to them, go to Muhammad, a servant to whom God has forgiven what has preceded of his sin and what will follow. Thus that station was attained through the perfection of his servanthood to God, and through the perfection of God's forgiveness for him. Consider also his words in the verse, you are the ones who are poor in relation to God. 35:15. He linked poverty to him by his name, God, rather than by the name of lordship, to indicate the two kinds of poverty, for it is, as has preceded, of two kinds. Poverty in relation to his lordship, which is the poverty of all creatures without exception, and poverty in relation to his divinity, which is the poverty of his prophets, his messengers, and his righteous servants. This is the beneficial poverty, the poverty to which the people of the path allude, about which they speak, and towards which they strive, the special poverty, not the general one. Their expressions concerning it and their descriptions of it have differed, and each has spoken of it according to the measure of his tasting and his ability to give it words. Shaykh al-Islam al-Ansar said, poverty is the name for being free of seeing possession, and it has 3 degrees. The first degree, the poverty of the ascetics, restraining the hands from the world, whether by strict control or by turning away from seeking, and restraining the tongue from it, whether in blame or in praise, and seeking safety from it, whether by refusing it or by leaving it. This is the poverty whose honour they have spoken of. The second degree, returning to the earlier precedents through contemplating grace. This gives rise to being delivered from seeing one's deeds. It cuts off witnessing one's states, and it purifies one from the stains of scrutinizing the stations. The third degree, the soundness of utter dependence, falling into the hand of unitive severance, being held fast in the bond of stripping away, and this is the poverty of the Sufis. As for his saying, poverty is the name for being free of seeing possession, it means the poor one is he who strips his vision of ownership down to its true owner. Thus he sees himself as owned by God. He does not see himself as owning in any respect, and he sees his deeds as due from him by virtue of his being an own servant, made to labour in what his master has commanded him. His very self is owned, and his deeds are owed by the obligation of servanthood. He is not the owner of himself, nor of anything in his particles, nor of any of his deeds. Rather, all of this is owned over him and required of him, like a man who buys a servant with his own pure wealth, then teaches him some crafts, and when he has learned them, he says to him, work and deliver to me. You have nothing of your own person, and nothing of what you earn. So, if this servant were to obtain by his hand whatever wealth and means he might obtain, he would not see any of it as belonging to him. Rather, he would see it as a trust placed in his hand, seeing it as the wealth of his master, his treasuries and his gifts, placed in the hand of a servant entrusted with it, disposing of it for his master, not for himself. As was said by God's servant and his messenger, his chosen one among his creation. By God, I do not give anyone, nor do I withhold from anyone. I am only a distributor. I place it where I have been commanded. Thus he manages those treasuries by sheer command, the management of a pure servant whose task is to carry out his master's orders. God is the true owner, and all that is in the hands of his creation is from his wealth, his possessions, and his treasuries. He has caused it to overflow upon them in order to test them in giving and withholding. Will this proceed from them upon the witness of servanthood to God? Mighty and exalted is he, so that one gives something out of longing for God's reward, out of fear of his punishment, drawing nearer to him and seeking his good pleasure. Or will giving and withholding proceed from them out of the soul's desire, the dominance of caprice and the pressure of temperament, so that one gives for his caprice and withholds for his caprice? Then he behaves with the conduct of an owner, not of one owned. The source of his conduct becomes the defence of caprice and the aims of the soul, and his ultimate desire becomes what people possess: status, elevation, rank, praise, or some portion of worldly fortune, or the fear of losing something of these. When the source and ultimate aim of his conduct are this desire and fear, he necessarily sees himself as an owner. He claims possession, steps beyond the boundary of servanthood, and forgets his poverty. Had he known himself with true knowledge, he would have known that he is only an owned one, made to stand in the guise of an owner who disposes, just as God Most High says, "Then we made you successors on earth after them, so that we might see how you act." 10:14. Such a one, being tested in this way, deserves to be left to what his soul claims for itself of states and possessions alongside the true owner. Glory be unto him. For whoever claims for himself a state alongside God will be left to it, and whoever is left to something other than God has had opened for him the gate of ruin and destruction, and closed against him the gate of triumph and happiness. For everything other than God is false, and whoever is entrusted to falsehood, his work becomes void, his striving goes astray, and he gains nothing but deprivation. Everyone who clings to something other than God will be cut off by it at the moment when he needs it most, as God Most High says, "When those who were followed will disown those who followed them, and they will see the suffering, and all bonds between them will be severed." 166. The bonds that will be cut off from them are the ties that were forged for other than God, and by other than God. They will be severed from them at the very moment when they are in greatest need of them. And that is because those ends for which they were sought will have vanished and turned null. And when the ends become void and fade away, their means likewise become void by the voidness of their ends, and fade away by their fading. Everything is destined to perish except his face alone. Thus every deed is empty and false unless his face alone is intended by it, and every striving for other than him is false, fading into nothing. This is something people can witness in this world, the striving, labour, service and toil that a servant exerts for a ruler, an emir, one in office, or a man of wealth. If that one disappears from him, the labour and the striving are lost, and nothing remains in his hand but deprivation. For this reason God, exalted is he, will say on the day of resurrection, "Is it not justice on my part that I hand over each man among you to that which he used to take as patron in the world?" So the worshippers of idols and images will be handed over to their idols and images, and they will plunge with them into the fire. And the worshippers of the sun and moon and the stars will be handed over to them. Then, when the sun is folded up, 81, and the stars are scattered, 81, that worship will vanish and become void. Regret will descend upon them. Thus God will make their deeds a bitter regret for them, and they shall not come out of the fire. 67. For this reason, the idolater is the most ruinous of people in his bargain, and the most cheated on the day of his return. He is referred to one who is utterly bankrupt, indeed, to sheer nothingness. Whereas the one who affirms God's oneness is referred to the one who is rich beyond need, the most generous. How immeasurable is the distance between the two references! And his saying, freedom from seeing ownership, and not freedom from ownership, is because a man may be poor in the outward sense, possessing nothing. Yet this is not the praised poverty, nor is it the poverty of those who see no ownership except for the true owner of sovereignty and dominion. A servant may be entrusted with a portion of this and made within it like a treasurer, just as Solomon, son of David, was given a kingdom such as none after him was given. And likewise the friend of God, and Shu'aib, and other wealthy prophets, peace be upon them all, and likewise the wealthy among the companions. These were not in outward reality free of possession, yet they were free of seeing possession as belonging to themselves. Rather, they see what is in their hands as a loan and a trust from God placed in their hands, by which he tests them. Will they conduct themselves in it with the conduct of servants, or with the conduct of owners who give for their whims and withhold for their whims? The presence of wealth in the hand of the poor does not diminish his poverty. Rather, it perfects for him his seeing of ownership. Whoever has been healed of seeing ownership is not inwardly soiled by the filth of wealth, its toil, its management, its choosing. He is like a treasurer for his master, executing his orders in his property. Such a one, were mountains of the world's wealth in his hand, would not be harmed by it. But whoever is not healed of this, his soul lays claim to ownership. So his soul becomes attached to it with the attachment of the lover to what he loves and adores. It becomes his greatest concern and the farthest limit of his knowledge. If he is given, he is pleased. If he is withheld, he is angered. He becomes a slave of dinar and dirham. He rises preoccupied with them and goes to sleep preoccupied with them, making them his bedfellow. His soul rejoices when they increase, and it grieves and laments when something of them is lost. Indeed, he nearly destroys himself when he merely imagines poverty, and a man may come to prefer death over poverty. As for the first, he is content through his master, the living owner, in whose hand are the treasuries of the heavens and the earth. When some calamity touches the wealth that is in his hand, he sees that it is the true owner whose own wealth has been struck. What is there, then, for a servant to do with panic and dread? It is only the owner of wealth disposing of his own dominion, his dominion which is a deposit in the hand of one owned. He has full authority in his wealth. If he wills, he keeps it, and if he wills, he causes it to depart and pass away. Therefore he does not accuse his master's disposal within his dominion. Rather, he sees that his governance is what wisdom demands. So his heart has no attachment to wealth, and he has no anxious concern with it, for he has risen above it, and his aspiration has been lifted toward the true owner. He is rich through him, by his love of him, his knowledge of him, and his nearness to him above all else, while he is poor in relation to him, needing him, and none besides him. This, then, is the one freed from seeing ownership, that vision which gives birth to insolence. God Most High says, "No, indeed, man becomes rebellious when he sees himself self-sufficient." 96. He did not say when he becomes self-sufficient, but made rebellion spring from his seeing himself as self-sufficient. And he did not mention this seeing in Surah Al-Layl. Rather, he said, "But as for him who is miserly, and deems himself self-sufficient, and gives the lie to the best, we shall ease him to the path of hardship." 92, Qud 8-10. And God knows best. In the first, he mentioned what brings about his rebellion, his seeing himself self-sufficient, whereas in Surah Al-Layl, he mentioned what brings about his ruin and his being denied the way of ease, namely, his deeming himself independent of his Lord by abandoning obedience and servanthood. For had he been in need of him, he would have drawn near to him by what he commanded of obedience, the conduct of one owned who cannot be without his master for the blink of an eye, and who finds no escape from complying with his command. Therefore he coupled it with miserliness, that is, his withholding of what is due from him of words and deeds, and the discharging of wealth. And he joined to that his giving the lie to the best, the promise made to the people of excellence in his saying, "For those who do good, there shall be the best, and more besides." 10:26. Whoever interprets the best as the testimony that there is no deity but God, this is because it is the root of excellence, and by it the best is attained. But whoever interprets it as recompense in return for spending has not given the meaning its due, for it is greater than that, even though recompense is indeed one part of the best. The point is that deeming oneself independent of God is the cause of a servant's ruin, and the easing of every hardship upon him, and his seeing himself self-sufficient is the cause of his rebellion. Both stand in opposition to poverty and servanthood. His words: the first degree is the poverty of the ascetics, restraining the hands from the world, whether by strict control or by seeking, and restraining the tongue from it, whether in blame or in praise, and seeking safety from it, whether by refusing it or by leaving it. This is the poverty whose honour they have spoken of. The essence of this degree is that hand and heart are empty of the world, and that one is oblivious to poverty in relation to it, and to asceticism toward it. The sign that the hand is empty is that it does not shake the world loose by holding it tightly or by craving it. He does not grip it when it is present, out of stinginess and tight-fistedness, nor does he seek it when it is absent, with begging, persistence, and greed. These symptoms and this shaking loose indicate that its station has fallen from the heart. For if it had a station in the heart, the matter would have been the opposite. He would have been tightly grasping when it was present because of his sense of richness through it, and he would have been seeking it when it was absent because of his poverty in relation to it. Also, among the kinds of emptiness is holding the tongue back from blaming it or praising it. For whoever cares about something, and it has a place in his heart, his tongue becomes busy with what overflows from his heart regarding it in praise or blame. If he attains it, he praises it. If it escapes him and is withheld, he blames it. Blaming it is a sign of its place in the heart, for a thing is blamed only in proportion to one's concern for it and one's care to cure what it brings. Likewise, magnifying asceticism toward it is only in proportion to its weight in the heart. For if it had no weight, asceticism toward it would not have weight. Likewise, praising it is a sign of its weight and its place in the heart, for whoever loves a thing mentions it much. Thus the possessor of this degree does not grip it when it is present, nor seek it when it is absent. And no praise flows from his heart to his tongue to show love for it, and no blame flows from his heart to his tongue to show its place and its danger. For when a thing becomes small, the heart turns away from it, whether in blame or in praise. Likewise, the possessor of this degree becomes oblivious to looking at his leaving it. This is what was mentioned earlier regarding the danger of asceticism toward it, because when the servant looks at himself as one who has left it, an ascetic toward it, his soul begins to yearn for this leaving and to taste sweetness in it, which is a sign that he is still preoccupied with it, even if only in the guise of self-display. This is due to its danger and its worth. Had it become small in his heart, then leaving it and being ascetic toward it would also become small in his heart. If the heart were occupied with one of the great required concerns, those that slip away from people of hearts and spirits, it would become heedless of looking at itself through leaving and asceticism. So the possessor of this degree is healed of all these maladies, the malady of tight control, of craving, of blame, of praise, and of leaving. They are all of a single kind. Even if some of them are praiseworthy in the realm of knowledge and are intended and merit reward and praise when truly realized, still they are traces and outward forms that suggest that their possessor has not yet tasted the state of inner emptiness and stripping, let alone truly realized any of the realities for which people compete and strive. Thus, the possessor of this degree stands between two. Between one who has entered the world wholly, leaning on it, finding rest in it, taking it as homeland and making it his dwelling, and between one who has cast it aside entirely from his heart and tongue, freeing himself from its fetters, its coarseness, and its effects, and rising to what gladdens the heart, gives it life, and fills it with joy through the attractions of true dignity. He is then in a barzakh, like a pregnant woman near to giving birth, awaiting the birth of spirit and heart morning and evening. For whoever's spirit and heart have not yet been born, and who has not yet come out from the placenta of his own self and been delivered from the darkness of his nature, his caprice, and his will, he is like a fetus in his mother's womb, who has not seen the world and what lies within it. He remains within the placenta of the self and within the three darknesses, the darkness of the self, the darkness of nature, and the darkness of caprice. He must therefore be born twice, just as the Messiah said to the disciples, "You shall not enter the kingdom of heaven until you are born twice." For this reason, the prophet, God bless him and grant him peace, was a father to the believers, as in the reading of Ubay. The prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and he is a father to them. 33. From this fatherhood follows the ruling that his wives are their mothers, for their spirits and hearts were born through him in another birth, beyond the birth of mothers. He brought their spirits and hearts out from the darkness of ignorance, straying and self-sufficiency into the light of knowledge and faith, into the open horizons of recognition and God's oneness, so that they beheld other realities and matters of which they had no awareness before. God Most High says, "A book we have sent down unto you, so that you may bring mankind out of darkness into light, by their sustainers' leave, onto the path of the Almighty, the one to whom all praise is due." 14. And God Most High says, "He it is who has raised among the unlettered a messenger from among themselves, to convey to them his messages, and to purify them, and to teach them the book and wisdom, whereas before that they were indeed in manifest error." 62. And he says, "Indeed, God bestowed a great favour upon the believers when he raised among them a messenger from among themselves, to convey to them his messages, and to purify them, and to teach them the book and wisdom, whereas before that they were indeed in manifest error." 164. The point is that hearts in relation to this birth are three. A heart that has not been born, nor has its time come. It is still a fetus in the womb of lusts, self-sufficiency, ignorance and straying. And a heart that has been born and has emerged into the open realm of God's oneness and recognition. It has been delivered from the placenta of nature and from the darkness of the self and caprice. Its eye has found coolness in God, and eyes and hearts find coolness through it. Spirits find intimacy in nearness to him, and the remembrance of seeing him is revived through him. It finds tranquillity in God, rests in him, and devotes its whole aspiration to him. Its concerns and resolves travel toward the highest companion. It finds no abiding contentment with anything other than God. It does not rest in anything besides him, nor does it find serenity with any other. It may find compensation for everything besides God, yet it finds no compensation for God, ever. His remembrance is the life of its heart. His good pleasure is the farthest end of its seeking. His love is its strength. His recognition is its intimacy. Its enemy is whoever draws its heart away from God, even if he be the near one, outwardly loyal. And its ally is whoever brings it back to God and gathers its heart upon him, even if he be the distant one, outwardly hostile. These, then, are two hearts, separated by the utmost distance, and a third heart, in the barzakh, awaiting birth morning and evening. It has glimpsed the open horizon of stripping away, and through the dwellings it has caught rays of God's oneness. At one time the surges of love and longing pull it forward, nothing in them but drawing nearer to the one in whose nearness all felicity lies, and in whose obedience and love lies every true share. And at another time the surges of nature pull it back, drawing it, halting it, delaying it. Thus it moves between the two callers now and then. It has crossed certain obstacles and survived certain afflictions, yet vast deserts and lonely wastes still lie before it. The intent is that if the one in this station truly realizes it outwardly and inwardly, and is safe from looking at himself in terms of his station, being preoccupied with it and stopping at it, then he is truly poor in the deepest sense, and no flaw remains in him of those flaws that lower one from the rank of poverty. Know also that it is good for the tongue to blame the world in two situations. One is when urging abstinence in it for someone who still desires it. The second is when the call of nature and the self draws one back to seeking it, and he does not feel safe from responding to that call. Then he brings to mind, within himself, how little it fulfills, how much it turns away and wounds, how base its partners are. For if his reason is complete and his sound judgment is present, he will renounce it, inevitably. A section. And his words, the second degree, returning to the earlier precedents through contemplating grace. This gives rise to being delivered from seeing one's deeds. It cuts off witnessing one's states, and it becomes purified from the lowliest preoccupations with surveying the stations. This degree, then, is loftier than the first and higher, and the first is like a means that leads to it. For in the first degree one sheds, by virtue of one's poverty, the very possibility that anyone other than one's true master might attain one, and that one's breaths be spent in other than what pleases him, and that one's concerns be scattered among other than what he loves, and that one ever prefer anyone over him in any state whatsoever. From such emptiness, and from such a way of dealing with God, there necessarily arises the clarity of servanthood, the thriving of the inner secret between the servant and God, and the purest sincerity of affection and love. So one enters morning and evening with no concern but one's Lord alone. One's Lord has cut off, for him, every other concern. One's will for him has nullified every other will, and one's love for him has erased from the heart every love besides him. As it has been said, night after night the heart would travel on with 80, no, with 90 breaths and more. It would yearn for this, then grow familiar with other than it, and forget them at once when morning came. My heart had been lost before your love. It used to love creation, playing and roaming free. So when my heart called upon your love, it answered. I no longer see it ever leaving your sanctuary. May I be deprived of all my hopes from you if I am lying, and if I ever found joy in this world without you. If there were anything in existence apart from you in which a wounded heart could find comfort and rejoice, and if the hands of desire should play with your veil, still it would not be turned away from your door. If it ever felt estranged, far from your dwelling, your love, deep within the ribs, would never depart. How many a buyer among creation has haggled for its heart? Yet it saw no cure save in your love alone. Desire for other than you is a blazing fire, a prison. Your love is paradise, or something wider still. How grievous, then, the heart that clings to other than you. How pitiful, how merciful, for what it turns in and toils through. And God, mighty and exalted is He, has not placed two hearts within a man's breast. 33. Thus, whatever enters the heart of concern, will and love drives out from it a corresponding concern, will and love. It is a single vessel, though the drinks are many. Whichever drink fills it leaves no room for any other. The vessel is filled with the highest of drinks only when it meets it empty. But if it meets it already filled with something else, it will not settle in it until what is inside is poured out. Then it takes its place, as one has said. Her love came to me before I ever knew what love could be. It found my heart empty, so it took possession. The poverty of the one who stands in this degree is to empty his vessel of every intoxicating drink. For every drink other than the drink of love and knowledge is intoxicating, inevitably. And whatever intoxicates in much, its little is forbidden. How can the intoxication of desire and the world be compared with the intoxication of wine? And how could the drink of Tasnim, highest of the lover's drinks, be poured into a vessel already full of the wine of the world and desire, a heart that does not sober from its drunkenness, nor even attempt to become sober? If only this intoxication would leave the heart, it would fly on the wings of longing toward God and the abode of the hereafter. But the poor wretch is content with what is low. He sells his share of nearness to God and of knowing Him and of honour with Him for the cheapest of prices, like one cheated in a ruinous bargain. He will come to know what share he squandered when the lovers triumph and the falsifiers lose. A section. If being stained by outward attributes is a fetter that restrains hearts from journeying to the land of their life and their bliss, the only place where they can dwell, the only place where they can find rest, the only place where they can know joy in its mansions, the only place where they can be safe among its people, then likewise one whose heart has been given glad tidings by the spirit of worshipful devotion, and who has tasted the sweetness of love and has found intimacy with the fire of knowledge, may still have subtle present attributes that bind his heart from matching the pure truth, and from the soundness of being driven to God in utter need, and from complete passing away in Him, and from abiding through His light, that which is sought in wayfaring and spiritual travel, the goal to which those who journey have rolled up their sleeves, the knowledge toward which worshippers have set their faces, and around which the realized have circled. Everything that veils him or ties the heart down by his gaze and his concern becomes a veil that bars the one who has arrived, halts the one who is travelling, and turns the seeker back. Hence, renouncing it is, for those of lofty aspiration, something that becomes as necessary as an appointed obligation without which one cannot do, like the renunciation of a pilgrim on his way to the sacred house. his renunciation of shade and water that he passes by at the stations along the road. The first is bound from realities by seeing outward attributes. The second is bound from the final ends by seeing states. Each of them is thus restrained from the sought for goal, and from this restraint arises the lack of penetration, and this is a later effect, differing in degree. When the servant understands this, and its knowledge becomes clear to him, it becomes incumbent upon him to renounce the states and his poverty in them, just as it becomes incumbent upon him to renounce wealth and status, and to keep his heart empty of both. And just as what the first degree of poverty required was a return to the hereafter, so that being fully absorbed in the concern of the hereafter required shaking the hands free of the world, whether by gripping it or by seeking it, and holding the tongue back from it, whether in praise or blame. So too, what this second degree requires is a return to the grace of God. Mighty and exalted is He, and a contemplation of His precedence over causes and intermediaries. For by God's grace and His mercy, from them came the noble states and the lofty stations, and by His grace and His mercy they reached His good pleasure and His mercy, His nearness and His honouring, His friendship and His guardianship. And He, glory be unto Him, was the first in all of that, as He is the first in everything, and He was the last in that, as He is the last in everything. So whoever worships Him by His name the first, the last attains the reality of this poverty. And if to that is added worship of Him by His name, the outward, the inward, then this is the knower who gathers together the scattered strands of worship, outwardly and inwardly. Thus, worship of Him by His name the first requires stripping oneself of gazing at causes, stopping at them, and turning one's attention toward them, and stripping the gaze down to the bare contemplation of the precedence of His grace and His mercy, and that He is the one who initiates beneficence without any means coming from the servant. For the servant had no means at all in non-existence before His existence. And what means could there have been there? He was sheer nothingness. Has there not come upon man a span of time when he was not yet a thing to be mentioned? 76. So from Him comes preparation, and from Him comes support, and His grace precedes all means, and the means themselves are nothing but His pure grace, His grace by which they exist, not by other means. Whoever receives the name the first in this sense will find that it obliges upon him a special poverty and a special servanthood. And worship of Him by His name the last requires likewise that one not rely upon causes, nor place one's trust in them, nor stop with them, for they must vanish, and they will come to an end with the hereafter, while the ever-living, the ever-abiding, remains after them. Attachment to them is attachment to what disappears and passes away, but attachment to the last, glory be unto Him, is attachment to the living one who does not die and does not fade. Such attachment is worthy never to fade and never to be cut off, unlike attachment to anything else, for whatever is other than Him has an end by which it perishes. Thus, just as the knower looks to Him with the precedence of firstness, how He was before all causes, so too he looks to Him with the abiding of lastness, how He remains after all causes. God was, and there was nothing besides Him, and everything is bound to perish, save His face alone. 28:88. So reflect on the servanthood that belongs to these two names, and on what they bring about. The soundness of being driven in utter need to God alone, and the constancy of poverty toward Him to the exclusion of everything besides Him, and that the affair began from Him and returns to Him. He is the initiator with grace, where there is neither cause nor means, and to Him the affair ends, where causes and means end. Thus he is the first of everything and its last. And just as he is the Lord of everything, its maker, its creator, its originator, so he is also its God and its ultimate end, that for which alone it can be set right, flourish, and be perfected, namely, that he alone be its goal. And just as there is no existence for it, except by his being alone its Lord and its Creator, so there is no perfection and no soundness for it, except by his being, exalted is he, alone its goal, and the farthest end of what it seeks. Thus he is the first from whom all created things began, and he is the last to whom their servanthood, their will, and their love must end. Nothing lies beyond God to be sought, worshipped, or taken as an object of devotion, just as nothing lies before him to create and bring into being. As he was one in bringing you into existence, make him one in your devotion and your servanthood. And as your existence began from him and your creation issued from him, make the end of your love, your will, and your devotion be toward him, so that your servanthood to him by his names, the first and the last, may become sound. Most people have worshipped him by his name, the first. The true task lies in worshipping him by his name, the last. This is the servanthood of the messengers and those who follow them. He is the Lord of all the worlds and the God of the messengers. Limitless is he in his glory and praise. As for worship of him by his name the outward, it is as the prophet, God bless him and grant him peace, explained it in his saying, "You are the outward, so nothing is above you, and you are the inward, so nothing is beneath you." When the servant realizes his absolute exaltedness over all things by his very essence, so that there is in no way at all anything above him, and that he is overpowering above his servants, and that he governs the affair from heaven to earth, then it ascends to him, and that to him ascends all good words, and the righteous deed does he raise up. 35:10. His heart comes to have a goal to which it turns, a Lord whom it worships, and a God to whom it directs itself. Not so the one who does not know where his Lord is. He is lost, his heart scattered, no direction for his heart to face, and no object of worship to which his intent may turn. But the person of this latter state, whenever he journeys, devotes himself and worships, seeks by all that something in which his heart may settle, and toward which it may direct itself. Yet he has come to believe that above the throne there is nothing but sheer non-existence, that above the world there is no God who is worshipped, prayed to, and prostrated to, and that upon the throne there is none to whom good words ascend, and to whom righteous deeds are raised. His heart then roams through the whole of existence. Inevitably he falls into the doctrine of union. His heart becomes attached to an absolute existence diffused through determinate things, and so he takes as his God something other than the true God, imagining that he has reached the very core of reality. In truth, he has devoted himself and worshipped a created thing like himself, or a phantom he carved out with his own thinking, and then took as a deity apart from God. Yet the God of the messengers lies beyond all that altogether. Truly, your sustainer is God. He who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then established himself upon the throne, governing all that exists. No intercessor can there be save after his leave. That is God, your sustainer. Worship him, then will you not take heed? Unto him you all must return. God's promise is true. He creates in the first instance, then brings forth anew, so that he may reward, with equity, those who have attained faith and done righteous deeds. But for those who deny the truth, there is a drink of burning despair and grievous suffering for all their denial of the truth. 10. And he, exalted is he, says, God is he who created the heavens and the earth, and all that is between them in 6 days, then established himself upon the throne. You have none beside him as protector or intercessor. Will you not then take heed? He governs all that exists from heaven to earth. Then it ascends to him in a day, the measure of which is 1,000 years of your counting. Such is he, knower of the unseen and the seen, the Almighty, the dispenser of grace, who has made everything that he has created most good. And he began the creation of man out of clay. Then he made his offspring from an extract of base fluid. Then he shaped him and breathed into him of his spirit, and gave you hearing and sight and hearts. Little indeed is your gratitude. 32:9. Thus has he, glory be unto him, made himself known to his servants through his speech, with a knowledge that none denies except one who denies him. Glory be unto him, even if he claims that he is near to him thereby. And the purpose is that worshipping by the name the outward gathers the heart upon the one worshipped. It makes for it a Lord to whom it turns, a refuge to whom it repairs in its needs, and a sanctuary to which it flees. When this becomes established in the heart, and one knows one's Lord by his name, the outward, one's servanthood becomes upright. One now has a fortress and a haven to which one takes refuge, to which one escapes, and toward which one turns in terror at every moment. As for worshipping him by his name, the inward, it is something so subtle that the scope of expression grows narrow in conveying its reality. The tongue grows weary of describing it, alluding to it becomes difficult, and phrasing becomes alien to it. For it requires a knowledge pure of the stains of denying God's attributes, freed from the filth of likening him to creation, purified from the foulness of incarnationism and unionism, together with an expression that conveys the meaning and unveils it, and a sound tasting that is safe from the corrupt tastes of those who deviate. Whoever is granted this understands the meaning of his name, the inward, and his worship by it becomes sound. Limitless is God's glory. How many feet have slipped in this station, and how many minds have gone astray? Here the heretic speaks with the tongue of the truthful. Here the brethren of the Christians resemble the sincere monotheists, because understandings fall short of grasping it, because truth is hard to disentangle from falsehood within it, and because what is in the mind becomes confused with what is outside, except for one whom God has granted insight into the truth, and a light by which he distinguishes between guidance and error, and a criterion by which he separates between truth and falsehood. And he is granted, together with that, a clear awareness of the causes of error, the branching of paths, and the places where confusion is born. So he is given discernment in truth and falsehood. Such is a grace from God, bestowed upon whom he wills, and God is the Lord of immense grace. The gate to this knowledge and to this worship is to know the all-encompassing sovereignty of the Lord. Blessed and exalted is he over the worlds, and his tremendousness, that all realms are in his grasp, and that the 7 heavens and the 7 earths are in his hand, like a mustard seed in the hand of a servant. God Most High said, "And when we said unto you, Your sustainer encompasses all mankind," in 1760, and he said, "And God encompasses them from behind," 85:20. For this reason he, glory be unto him, joins between these 2 names that point to these 2 meanings. The name of loftiness, indicating that he is the outward and that nothing is above him, and the name of tremendousness, indicating encompassing, and that nothing is beneath him, just as God Most High says, "He is the Most High, the tremendous. 255:42. And he says he is the Most High, the Great. 34:23. And he says, and to God belong the east and the west. Wherever you turn, there is God's face. Truly, God is infinite, all-knowing. 115. And he, blessed and exalted is he, is the one who is high above his creation by his very essence. Nothing is above him. And he is the inward by his very essence. Nothing is beneath him. Indeed, he has mastery over everything and is above it. And he is, with his knowledge and his power, nearer to everything than it is to itself. Yet nothing encompasses him, while everything is encompassed by him. Everything is within his grasp, whereas his own essence is not within the grasp of anything. This is the nearness of all-encompassing encompassing. As for the nearness mentioned in the Qur'an and the Sunnah, it is a particular nearness, the nearness of his worshippers, those who journey to him and those who call upon him. It is a fruit of worshipping him by his name, the inward. God Most High says, and when my servants ask you about me, behold, I am near. I answer the call of the caller when he calls upon me. 186. This then is his nearness to the one who calls upon him. And God Most High says, truly, God's mercy is near to those who do good. 56. Thus he mentioned the predicate near rather than repeating the noun mercy. And this is among the most emphatic ways of affirming his nearness. Exalted is he from the doer of good, as though he said, God is near to the doers of good by his mercy. And in the authentic report from the Prophet, God bless him and grant him peace. The closest that a servant is to his Lord is when he is in prostration, and the closest that the Lord is to his servant is in the depth of the night. This, then, is a nearness that is special, distinct from the nearness of encompassing, and the nearness implied by the name, the inward. And in the authentic report from the hadith of Abu Musa, that they were with the Prophet, God bless him and grant him peace, on a journey, and the people raised their voices with the takbir. So he said, O people, be gentle with yourselves. You are not calling upon one who is deaf or absent. You are calling upon one who hears, who is near, closer to each of you than the neck of his mount. This is his nearness to the one who calls upon him and remembers him. That is, there is no need for you to raise voices, since he hears them, whether you lower them or raise them. He is near, hearing. And this nearness is among the entailments of love. The greater the love, the greater the nearness. The love of the beloved may take possession of the lover's heart so completely that it makes him forget all else, until he sees him and beholds him. If the man does not have sound knowledge of God, and of what is due to him, and what is impossible for him, and if he does not keep to the limits of truth, then, because of weakness in discernment and the overpowering dominion of love, he may knock at the door of incarnationist notions, unless God saves him. In a state like this one says, Glory be to me, or there is none in this robe but God, and the like, those rapt utterances whose end is that they be forgiven and excused for their intoxication and the loss of their discernment in that state. Thus, worshipping by this name is to worship him through the purest love and the clearest affection, and that the divine, glory be unto him, be the nearest of all things to his servant, and nearer to him than his own self, while still being the outward, above whom there is nothing. And whoever's mind is unveiled, and whose nature is refined, so that he understands this, he is pardoned for whatever may issue from him in that state. It has been said, if you cannot achieve something, then leave it, and pass on to what you can achieve. Whoever has not tasted something of the nearness of love, and of knowing the beloved's nearness that arises from the very extremity of love, however far the distance between them may be, especially when love is on both sides, and is a love pure of defects, blemishes, and passing attributes, will often be astonished at what the lover's beloved comes to dominate within his heart and his recollection. Thus the lover often loses awareness of all else. His heart softens, and he becomes stripped of himself. He sees his beloved as though present with him, near to him, even while the distance between them remains. In this state his heart contains the beloved's existence in knowledge, and his tongue contains his existence in words, and this inward witnessing comes to prevail over him and makes him absent to all else. He then imagines that the beloved's existence is outwardly present before his very eyes, because the rule of heart and spirit has prevailed, as was said, "Your image is in my eyes, your remembrance is on my tongue, your dwelling is in my heart, so how could you be absent?" Yet his beloved may indeed be far away from him, while his enemy stands between them, though bodies may be near and homes may touch. The point is that this intellectual image is not the outward reality, even if it corresponds to it. But the intellect's image belongs to the heart, whereas the outward reality belongs outside. Thus, knowing these four names, the first, the last, the outward, the inward, is among the foundations of knowledge and recognition. By truly realizing them, the servant reaches, in knowing them, as far as his recitation and understanding can carry him. And know that you are first and last, inward and outward. Indeed, you are the first of all that is first, and the last of all that is last, and the outward of all that is outward, and the inward of all that is inward, even down to the passing thought, the instant, and the soul. And beneath that and above that lies what is still greater. For God's firstness, mighty and exalted is he, precedes the firstness of all besides him, and his lastness remains after the lastness of all besides him. His firstness is his precedence over everything, and his lastness is his abiding after everything. His outwardness is his loftiness and his exaltedness over everything, and the very meaning of outwardness requires loftiness. The outward of a thing is what is above it, and encompasses its inward. And his inwardness, glory be unto him, is his encompassing of everything, and his nearness that makes him closer to each thing than it is to itself. And this is a nearness other than the nearness of the lover to his beloved. This is one kind, and that is another. Thus the orbit of these four names is encompassing. Two encompassings, one of time and one of place. His firstness and his lastness encompass before and after, and his outwardness and his inwardness encompass every outward and every inward. So every former ends at his firstness, and every latter ends at his lastness. Hence his firstness and his lastness encompass all firsts and lasts, and his outwardness and his inwardness encompass every outward and every inward. So there is nothing outward above God, and nothing inward beneath God, and there is nothing before him but God, and nothing after him but God. The first is his priorness, the last is his everlastingness and abiding. The outward is his loftiness and tremendousness. The inward is his nearness and his subtle presence. Thus he preceded everything by his firstness. He remained after everything by his lastness. He rose above everything by his outwardness, and he drew near to everything by his inwardness. No heaven veils him from a heaven, and no earth from an earth. No outward conceals him from an inward. Rather, the inward is outward to him. The unseen is witnessed by him, the distant is near to him, and the secret is, with him, openly manifest. These four names comprise the pillars of God's oneness. He is the first in his lastness, and the last in his firstness, the outward in his inwardness, and the inward in his outwardness. He has never ceased to be first and last, outward and inward, and worshipping him by these names has two ranks. The first rank, to witness his priorness, exalted is he over everything, his lastness after everything, his loftiness and being above everything, and his nearness and being below everything. For the created being is veiled by another created being like itself. The veil stands between the veiled and the veiler. But the Lord, majestic is his glory, nothing is beneath him, and he is nearer to creation than they are to themselves. The second rank of worship, that the servant deal with each name according to what it entails. Thus he deals with his priorness. Exalted is he, with his precedence over everything, and with his precedence by his grace and his beneficence over all causes. And he deals with what his uniqueness demands, not turning to anything else, not trusting anyone besides him, and relying upon him rather than upon any other. For who was it that interceded for you in pre-eternity, when you were not yet a thing to be mentioned? 76. Until he named you with the name of Islam, and marked you with the mark of faith, and made you among the people of the right hand, and then cut you off, within that unseen, into the ranks and offices of the believers, thus protecting you from slavery to servants, and freeing you from being bound by dependence upon one who has shape and peer. Then set your face, heart and face, toward him alone. Blessed and exalted is he, to the exclusion of all besides him. So beseech the one who guarded you from prostrating to idols, and judge for yourself by the light of truthfulness, that blessing upon you is sheer gift from him, initiated without any cause coming from you. And gird your aspiration so that it ceases to watch others, and do not incline to traces and forms, and do not be content with what is low. Take up the lofty demands and the exalted ranks that are reached only through obedience to God. For God, mighty and exalted is he, has decreed that what is with him is attained only through obeying him. Whoever is with God as God wants him to be, God will be for him beyond what he wants. Whoever turns to him from afar will find him turning to him. Whoever moves by his power, iron will be softened for him. Whoever leaves something for his sake, he will give him far more. And whoever wants what God wants, God will want what he wants. Then direct your journey to the highest aim. Confine your love to him. Draw near to him by the precedence of his grace and his beneficence toward you beyond all causes. Rather, it is he who has honoured you with causes, and has bestowed them upon you, and has turned their impediments away from you, and has brought you to your praiseworthy goals. So rely upon him alone, set him alone to work for you, and let the trace of his good pleasure alone be what you seek. Make his love and his good pleasure the very Kaaba of your heart. Keep circling it, never ceasing, submitting, leaning, and abiding by its sanctuary. There lies your triumph and your happiness. For if the Most High makes this rise within your heart, what can strip you of the garments of his blessing and the robe of his grace? O God, none can withhold what you have given, and none can give what you have withheld, and no one's wealth or power can benefit him against you. Limitless are you in your glory, and all praise is yours. Then worship him by his name, the last. Make him alone your ultimate end, the end beyond which you have no end, and beyond which you seek nothing. As all ends culminate in him as the last, and as he is after every other, make your own ends culminate in him, for unto your sustainer is the final end. No goal lies beyond him, for it is to him that all causes and all ends reach their term. You have already been alerted to this, also with regard to worshipping him by his name, the outward. As for worshipping him by his name, the inward, when you witness his encompassing of the worlds, and the nearness of the distant to him, and the unveiling of inner depths to him, and that nothing stands between him and them, then deal with him according to what this witnessing demands. His outer becomes your secret, and your unseen becomes for him open. You have witness with him, and he has for you inwardness, and he has for you outwardness, for he is outward. So look how these four names gather the whole of knowing God, and gather servanthood for him. With them the servant's witnessing stands together with the grace of his Creator and his gift. He sees nothing for himself or for another except by him, by his power and his strength, and by the grace of his true Master. He is absent from everything that used to support him, or adorn him, or become his knot of reliance, or be the one he leaned upon in some concern among his concerns. All of this is born of the shortness of one's gaze, and its turning away from realities and principles toward causes and branches, as is the case with nature and caprice, which give rise to darkness and ignorance, and the human being is the darkness of ignorance. But whoever is granted by God, glory be unto him, sound discernment, and whose innate nature is made whole, and who is made to stand upon the beginnings of affairs, their ends, their paths, their sources, and their wells, he becomes like one truly bankrupt with regard to his knowledge, his deeds, his states, and his tastes. He says, I ask God's forgiveness for my knowledge and for my deeds, meaning for my attributing myself to them and claiming them, for my being absent to the grace of my Lord in them, for my being initiated into them by his gift, with no prior cause in me that made that necessary. He witnesses nothing but his Master's grace, his precedence, his gift, and their constancy. Thus his Master resembles him, through that lofty witnessing, in the reality of the middle poverty that stands between the lowest poverty and the highest, on two faces. One of them, deliverance from seeing one's deeds, when one used to see them, rejoice in them, and regard them as abundant, so that one becomes wholly absorbed in contemplating grace, absent to them, leaving their sight, passing away from seeing them. The second face, that this cuts him off from witnessing states, that is, from witnessing himself in them, and from regarding them as abundant. For the state belongs to the breast, and the breast is the house of the heart and the soul. When the gift descends into the breast for the heart, the soul settles there to take its share of the gift. It praises itself by it, boasts by it, shows conceit by it, and imagines it to be much, because it is ignorant and dark. This is what ignorance and darkness entail. But when the heart is reached by the light of the attribute of gift, and it witnesses the meaning of his name, the bestower, and when his glory becomes manifest upon the heart of his servant by this name, together with his name the first, the heart and the soul are stunned by it, and the servant becomes poor to his master, through contemplating the precedence of his first grace. Thus he becomes cut off from witnessing any state that he would attribute to himself, so that his very testimony about his own condition becomes, in its inner reality, a severing from beholding the might of his Master and Originator, and from attentiveness to his attributes. Hence the one absorbed in witnessing states is cut off from seeing the gift of his Creator and his grace, and from witnessing how the firstness precedes all causes, and through witnessing the might of his own self, he is absent from the might of his Master. Then this matter is reversed in the case of this poor servant. he becomes occupied with beholding the might of his master and his bounty, and with witnessing his precedence in firstness, so that there remains no state by which the servant might pride himself or seek distinction. And likewise, returning to the priorness through contemplating grace, purifies one from the stains that cling to the outlook of the stations. For a station is what has become firmly rooted in him, whereas a state is something passing that does not endure. Thus the outlook of stations and the sense of honour one takes in them lies in this, that a man sees himself as the possessor of a station which he has realized and perfected, and so he deems it deserved that it be attributed to him and that he be described by it, such as saying an ascetic, steadfast, fearful, hopeful, loving, content. To see oneself as deserving that the stations be added to one's name, and that one be described by them in the mode of entitlement, is to depart from poverty into richness, to trespass beyond the boundary of servanthood, and to be ignorant of what is due to lordship. So, returning to the priorness through contemplating grace, absorbs the servant's aspiration entirely, and purifies him, and cleanses him from such stains. And he becomes, by God's light, refined from the vileness of these impurities. His words, the third degree is the soundness of utter dependence, falling into the hand of unitive severance, being held fast in the bond of stripping away, and this is the poverty of the Sufis. This degree is, among the people of the path, above the two previous degrees. It is the goal toward which they have rolled up their sleeves and around which they have hovered. For the first poverty is poverty with respect to worldly attributes, and the second poverty is poverty with respect to seeing stations and states. But this third poverty is poverty with respect to noticing that existence which veils the servant from beholding the one who truly is. Thus the contingent existence remains in the grasp of the real. Mighty and majestic is he, like scattered dust in the air. It is turned as he turns it, and in the servant's witnessing it becomes as it is in outward reality. Thereupon the vision of God's oneness effaces from the servant all signs of self-rule and independence in any matter, down to the self, the fleeting glance, the instant, the aspiration, the passing thought, and the whispering, save by the will of the true intending one, glory be unto him, his planning, his measuring, his decree, and his determination. Thus the servant remains like a ball cast between the mallets of decree and destiny, tossed about however they will, through a sound witnessing of the self-subsisting governance of the one to whom belong creation and command, and through singling him out thereby to the exclusion of all besides him. This cannot be grasped by knowledge alone. It is known only by one who has realized it in himself, or to whom a flash of it has appeared. And the one in this witnessing may even forget the sense of his own existence, because the witnessing of the existence of the self-subsisting overwhelms him. Then, in the case of such a servant, utter dependence upon the living, the self-subsisting becomes sound, and in every particle of his outward and inward being he witnesses a complete neediness toward him. From the aspect of his being Lord, and from the aspect of his being God, worshipped and indispensable, just as there is no existence for him without him. This is the highest poverty around which the millstone of the people turns. Indeed, it is the axis of that millstone. This can become sound only through two knowledges which must be possessed: knowing the reality of lordship and divinity, and knowing the reality of the self and servanthood. Only then does the knowledge of this poverty become complete. And if he gives these two knowledges their due in servanthood, he is made just in the state of this poverty. How rich he becomes through poverty! how mighty through lowliness, how strong through weakness, how companioned through solitude. He is rich without wealth, strong without dominion, mighty without clan, sufficed without number. His eye has found coolness in God, and through him every eye finds coolness. He has become independent through God, and so the wealthy and the kings become needy toward him. Yet this will not be completed for him, except through disavowing the poverty of compulsion and its blood. For if he knocks at the door of compulsion, the whole order of servanthood is undone for him. He casts off the yoke of Islam from his neck, and he beholds all his deeds as acts of obedience to the cosmic, creational, destinational decree. And he chants, "I have become wholly acted upon by what he chooses for me, so all my deeds are acts of obedience." And when he is told, "Be conscious of God and do not disobey him," he says, "If I am disobeying his command, am I not obeying his decree and his will?" This man has slipped out of the revealed laws, is innocent of the call of the messengers, and is a brother to God's enemy, Iblis. Rather, the task of the poor one in this place and under this necessity is to witness command and law, to see his own undertaking of acts and their issuing from him by acquisition and choice, to see how command and prohibition relate to them by seeking and leaving, to see how blame and praise follow upon them by revelation and reason, and to see how reward and punishment attach to them in the hereafter and even in the immediate world. So when this sound witnessing gathers together in him with the witnessing of utter dependence in his movements and stillness, and the complete indigence toward the turner of hearts, he in whose hand are the reins of choice, he who, when he wills, makes a thing's existence necessary, and when he does not will, makes it impossible, and that there is none to guide one whom he lets go astray, and none to let go astray one whom he guides, and that it is he who moves hearts by wills and limbs by deeds, and that they are governed under the subjugation of his dominion, humbled under his overpowering, and that they are too helpless and too weak to move without his determination, and that his determination is effective in them as it is effective in the movements of the celestial spheres, the waters, and the trees, and that he moved each of these through a cause that necessitated its motion, while he is the creator of the necessitating cause, and the creator of the cause is the creator of the cause, and that the creator of the contingent will, which is the cause of motion and voluntary act, is the creator of both, and that a will's coming to be without a creator who brings it about is impossible, and that its coming to be in the servant without any will from him is impossible, and if it is by a will, then that will itself would require a will, and so on. Yet such infinite regress is impossible here. Therefore there must be an agent who brought that will into being, the very will that is the cause of the act. Here then poverty, neediness, and the complete necessity toward the owner of wills, the Lord of hearts and their directing, are fully realized. He turns them as he wills. Whomsoever he wills to cause to swerve, he causes to swerve, and whomsoever he wills to keep upright, he keeps upright. Our Sustainer, let not our hearts swerve after you have guided us, and bestow upon us mercy from yourself. You alone are the ever-granting. This is the sound poverty that accords with reason, innate nature, and revealed law. Whoever departs from it and swerves to either extreme, his heart turns away from guidance, and he nullifies the sovereignty of the king, the true, his singleness in governance and lordship, so that his command, his law, his reward, and his punishment become void for him. And the condition of this poor one, utterly compelled toward his Creator at every blink and every breath, is this: if God moves him toward obedience or toward a blessing, he gives thanks for it and says, "This is from the grace of God and from him. Its very existence is from him. To him belongs all praise. But if he moves him by the beginnings of disobedience, he cries out, clings, and seeks help, saying, I seek refuge in you from you. O turner of hearts, make my heart firm upon your religion. O director of hearts, direct my heart to your obedience. For if he is moved into disobedience, then rescue, rescue. He is a captive whom his enemy has taken, and he knows that there is no deliverance for him from captivity except that his master himself free him. His release is in the hand of his master. In his own hand there is nothing at all. He possesses for himself neither harm nor benefit, neither death nor life nor resurrection. 25. He is in the enemy's captivity, gazing toward his master, and his master is able to deliver him. His need for him has grown intense, and all his reliance has become upon him. Saul said, seeking refuge is only in proportion to knowing the measure of the trial, meaning in proportion to knowing the trial is one's knowledge of the one who tries. And whoever understands the meaning of the prophet's words, God bless him and grant him peace, I seek refuge in you from you, and lives by this knowledge in witnessing and tasting, and gives it its due in servanthood, is then truly poor. The whole orbit of sound poverty revolves around these words. Whoever is granted understanding of them is granted the secret of Mohammedan poverty. For he, glory be unto him, is the one who saves by his decree from his decree. He is the one who seeks refuge from himself by himself. He is the one who repels from himself by himself what comes from himself. The entire affair belongs to him. Judgment belongs to him altogether, and creation belongs to him altogether. Whatever he wills is, and whatever he wills not is not. Whatever he wills, none can turn aside except by his determination, and whatever he wills not, none can bring into being except by his determination. None brings good deeds except he. None carries off evil deeds except he. None guides to the best of deeds and traits except he, and none turns away their evil except he. If God touches you with affliction, none can remove it save he, and if he wills good for you, none can repel his bounty. 10:107. Knowing this necessitates the soundness of utter dependence, the perfection of poverty, and complete need. It stands between the servant and the seeing of his deeds and states, and being independent of them. And it stands between him and stepping out of the yoke of servanthood into a claim that does not belong to him. For how could someone claim, in relation to God, a state or a sovereignty, or any rank, while his heart and its wills, and his outward and inward motions, are in the hand of his Lord and his King, while he owns none of that in any way at all, and while their directing lies only in the hand of the turner of hearts, who directs them however he wills? Faith in this, and realizing it, establishes the order of God's oneness, and so whoever does not reach it, glory be unto him, does not obey except by his determination, does not attain anything of honour except by obeying him, has no way to obedience except through his granting success and his help. Thus the entire affair returns to him. As the whole affair began from him, so he is the first and the last, and unto your sustainer is the final end. And whoever reaches this state, falling into the hand of severance and stripping away, and is honoured with the station of special oneness, knows that oneness has two kinds, a general kind and a special kind. Just as prayer is of two kinds, remembrance is of two kinds, and nearness is likewise special and general. The special kind is what the doer brings to perfection through sincerity in counsel and purpose, so that he brings it in the best and most complete manner, whereas the general kind is whatever falls short of that. Thus, all Muslims share in their faith in the testimony that there is no deity but God, yet they differ in their knowledge of what this testimony entails and in how they realize its right inwardly and outwardly, something none can fully encompass except God, mighty and exalted. Many among the Sufis have imagined that special oneness is that the servant witnesses the mover for him, and becomes absent from the moved one and from motion, and so becomes absent from witnessing his own motion. And he witnesses himself as something over which the determinations of the divine will flow, like one drowned in the sea, over whom the waves lift and lower. He is absent to noticing his motion in himself. Rather, his motion is subsumed within the motion of the wave, so that he has no motion in reality. This, though many take it as the utmost limit, and some even deem it an inescapable entailment of oneness, is not correct. Rather, what lies beyond it is the truth. The ultimate end of this passing away is the oneness of lordship, that he witnesses no Lord, Creator or Director but God alone. This is true, yet the oneness of lordship alone does not suffice for salvation, let alone that such a witnessing and passing away should be the goal of the monotheists and the end of their seeking. No, the goal beyond which there is no goal, and after which there is no end, is passing away after passing away in the oneness of divinity, that he becomes absent by the love of his Lord from the love of all else, and by devotion to him from devotion to all else, and by longing for him from longing to meet all else, and through lowliness toward him and poverty toward him, as he is the one worshipped and adored, from lowliness and poverty toward all else, and likewise that he becomes absent through fear of him and hope in him, from fear of all else and hope in all else. Then he sees that nothing in existence is fit for any of that except God alone. After that, he becomes characterized by it as a lived state. His heart is dyed with it, as with a deep tincture. Then he becomes absent by it from all else. This is the special oneness to which the realized have rolled up their sleeves, the pure, limpid draught around which the lovers hover. Around it the lovers hover. When the servant reaches it, he is in the hand of severance and stripping away. He is clothed in the garment of true poverty. The love of God tears from his heart every other love. His fear tears away every fear. His hope tears away every hope. Then his love, his fear, his hope, his humility, his submission, his preferring, his will, and his way of dealing with God, all of it becomes one for one. His seeking is not divided, nor is what he seeks. For multiplicity and division in what is sought undermines oneness and sincerity, and division in seeking undermines truthfulness and will. Therefore, there must be a unifying of seeking and will, and a unifying of what is sought and intended. So, when his beloved is absent to him from love of any other, when his remembrance is absent to him from remembering any other, when his being worshipped and adored is absent to him from adoring any other, then he becomes among the people of special oneness. The possessor of love is stripped of noticing anything other than his beloved, his sign, his preferring, his dealing with him, his fear, or his hope. The possessor of the oneness of lordship in the bond of stripping away is stripped of noticing any agent other than God, and he is stripped of noticing even his own existence, just as the possessor of the first degree was stripped of his wealth, and the possessor of the second degree was stripped of his deeds and his states. And the possessor of passing away in the oneness of divinity is stripped of everything except what pleases his beloved and his commands. He has passed away through love of him and seeking his good pleasure, from loving any other and seeking anyone else's good pleasure.